On today's show, a broadcasting legend passes away. Democrats call for a truth commission against conservatives. Facebook suppresses the political opposition. Comey, knowing the dossier wasn't corroborated, continued to sign warrants, and the Biden administration won't rule out executive action on gun control. So first and foremost, Rush Limbaugh passed away today. Thoughts and prayers, as always, to his family. He had a long battle with lung cancer for about a year. He was diagnosed stage 4 about a year ago. And I actually never really listened to Rush until maybe about a year ago. So I only got to listen to him for about a year. I know, people in my family have known for a very long time. Older people, my grandfather used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. He was intergenerational with his approach. He was really a founder of conservative talk radio. He's also probably, as in terms of what he did for a living in conservative talk radio, he is the best of all time, unquestionably, and he will far surpass everyone probably for the rest of our human existence. He was so skilled. He couldn't hear. He had cochlear implants. He was, he had this southern kind of, he had this weird, I don't even know how to explain it, almost like he was smoking a pack a day for 20 years type of voice. And his approach, the way in which he was able to convey information was second to none. So I want to start this one off. This show, I got a lot of content. I was just actually reading another hilarious article. We have now this Thursday, there's going to be a congressional meeting with these guys that were on Reddit that are, I don't even know what the charge really is going to be against these Reddit users in the GameStop debacle on the stock market about a month ago. But they will be going up to Congress, and now we're going to see which party really is for the working class, which party is in the pocket of the bootlicking Wall Street guys. Because I'm very perplexed at the reason in which they're even having this congressional meeting. Somehow the Wall Street guys consistently get away with, or the hedge funders consistently get away with manipulating the market, coming out and talking about news about this company or that company, either crashing the stock or skyrocketing the stock, and somehow that's okay and that's acceptable to us. But then when these retail investors do the same thing, and let's say even if they weren't retail investors, let's say there's a lot of clout and money behind these retail investors, but I'm sure some of them were retail investors. Why is it that them playing the game the same way is suddenly now a problem, and now the government needs to come in and look at it? I just think that's, especially in a Biden administration, this is a Democrat government right now. This democratically ran in the House of Reps. They have a small majority in the Senate, and they also have the presidency. So I'm trying to figure out why they're having this meeting. All you Democrats out there, maybe you can answer the question for me why they're having this congressional meeting, and why the congressional meeting isn't comprised of the hedge funders or the Wall Street elitists, why they're not there, and somehow a bunch of retail investors that made money off these guys are there. And here's another thing is and I've said this before, if these hedge funders, what I don't understand is you are a hedge funder. You're supposed to hedge your bets. That's kind of the definition. You're supposed to set yourself up so if you lose in one category, the loss is not going to be substantial. You're supposed to diversify your portfolio, which they didn't do. They were rigging the game, and they thought that they can get away with it, because many times I'm sure they have gotten away with it, and they bet more stock than was even available. They shorted 140% of the stock, thinking that they're going to get away with it and come out with a huge margin right after they said that, GameStop's not looking so hot. And they think they're going to make so much money, and they end up getting screwed. And this is something they've consistently done, but that's not a problem. But somehow we're gonna crap all over the little guy once again. If Democrats, if you guys can somehow, if you can explain to me how the Democrat Party isn't in the pocket of the big businesses right now, the fact that they're having a congressional meeting about this. I just don't. I cannot fathom. I do not understand why they're doing it. So let's start off. That was something that I just read. And then also I want to get to this. I don't really have all the information now. All the information hasn't come out. But I wanted to get to this situation in Texas. And I'm going to hit it probably this weekend on the weekend special in Texas, just because specifically I've been hearing different numbers about how big the power grid is in Texas, how much of it is electrically ran by renewable resources. From what I understand, it's around 25%. And there's also the freezing of the windmills, and then the freezing also when you have snow over your solar panels, they're useless at that point. So I just wanted to kind of hit on that. I'm going to talk about it this weekend just because, like I said again, I don't really have all the sources together. I know the left likes to go out in a big upheaval talking about infrastructure and renewable energy. We got to end climate change, but then when you go forward with their plan and you try to put it into some sort of action, I'm not even talking about 100% renewable energy right now. We're talking about 25%, and we see what ends up happening. And everyone's somehow blaming the gas industry. It's very weird. So once all those statistics come out, I'm going to report it this weekend for sure. So first off, what I want to get to, I have a couple clips here today. I have, first and foremost, I have a $1,400 stimulus check will allow 22.6 million Americans to pay their bills up until, I think they said, I'm trying to look at the date, July, into mid-July. This is something that recently came out. I think Joe Biden actually made the statement. He made the statement talking about how that a Morning Consult report found that 22.6 million Americans will be able to pay their bills through mid-July with $1,400 stimulus checks. So I don't know if he actually did say that then. I just, me personally, I don't think that's even possible. I don't understand how $1,400 will help you pay. Right now it's March 1st. Or it's going to be March 1st when they get the stimulus check. I'm sorry, it's February, but they'll get it in March 1st, on March 1st. And then how's $1,400 supposed to help you pay your bills till mid-July? I don't know who's coming out with this information and who's verifying it, but it can't be truthful. And a Morning Consult report, like I said, found that, and the report recommended lower income thresholds, increased child payments, and extended unemployment aid to mitigate risks that the pandemic could bring. The House Committee on Ways and Means included unemployment benefits through August 29th, which some Democratic lawmakers said was not enough. So they're still trying to figure out what's going to go on with this relief bill. They cleared up the money. They voted it through to say, okay, the money's clear, and now they're trying to figure out the specifics of the bill. And they're debating back and forth. And they're talking before it was, we're going to extend unemployment all the way till September 2021. And I just don't know how long we're going to continue to do this whole COVID-19 thing. We have some really terrible things happening. We've been... Now, for an entire year, people have not seen their older family members. People have not been able to visit hospitals. They could have family members passing away. They can have them being, deathly ill. And in their very final moments of life, you can't even visit them in the hospital because now the system we've set up it's such an inhumane system where there's really just no feelings anymore. You don't even get to see each other's faces because you're wearing masks. So now what we're doing is we're dying in hospitals with no dignity, without our family around. It's just, that's what's been going on now for about a year. And the mainstream media is nowhere to be found. We're talking about colors on Air Force One, and whether they're going to change the paint or what have you. And they're reporting how it's nice to see Joe Biden with his dog in the White House on the front grass. Those are the things that they report in the media. They really just do not care about the American people at all. They don't care how much we suffer. They just go out there. They're in lockstep with the government. And they're going out there to see how much can we take. Are you going to wear 2 masks? Are you going to wear 3 masks? Are you going to wear 4? How much can we take from you? And then the whole idea of climate change to begin with, like I mentioned before, the greater, anytime the government comes out and they tell you we're doing this for the greater good, most of the time they're not doing anything for you for the greater good. It is strictly to take more from you in the guarantee, and it's not a real guarantee, it's a false blanket of guarantee of safety. They are not making you any safer. All the restrictions that we've had, and I have an article at the very end of this, compares California and Florida where Florida and California have taken totally different avenues, totally different measures, where Florida has generally been pretty open, unimpeded in the way in which they've lived their lives, and then California has been lockdown central, and they have very similar, not only similar, but almost the exact same numbers. California, actually, Florida's numbers in terms of deaths are actually better than per like 100,000. If that's the parameter, it is actually better than California. So California's done a worse job. They've had harder, stricter lockdowns, and they've put many small businesses out of business, whereas Florida has stayed open and they have a surplus in their budget this year. And Ron DeSantis is made out by the media to be the big bad guy. So just to start off, speaking of media, now Trump impeachment hearing, he was acquitted. This is a this is a lesson on how you should handle, how our politicians, now, or you as a regular citizen, what you should think about the media and how you should handle the media. Play 2.
Let's follow up with a point that you're making right now about the House managers, as you say, doctoring evidence, and the argument.
They didn't deny it.
Viewers,
they didn't deny it. I put it in front of them 3 times.
To be clear for our viewers, what you're talking about now is a check mark. That's a verification on Twitter that did not exist on that particular tweet. A 2020 that should have actually read 2021, and the selective editing, you say, of the tapes. Is that the doctored evidence of what you're speaking?
Wait. That's not enough for you? That's not enough for you?
Wait, no,
sir,
no. I'm trying. I'm not a juror in this trial. What I'm trying to be clear for our viewers is what you're referring to, because not everybody has been following.
It's not okay.
No, not everybody.
To doctor
sir,
a little bit of evidence.
Respectfully. I have not said it is. I have not said it is okay.
Ma'am, your question is
I want to be clear for our viewers.
Listen, what has to happen is
I want to be clear for our viewers about what exactly you're saying when you say doctored evidence.
The media has to start telling the right story in this country. The media is trying to divide this country. You are bloodthirsty for ratings, and as such,
question. A slanted
question that was set up to say it's okay for them to cheat. That was your question. Isn't it okay for them to cheat?
I didn't say that.
It's just a little bit. You said, to be fair, it was only a check on the Twitter. That's what you said. You got to live by your words. That's the problem. The media has to start living by the truth and not try to create a narrative.
Michael Vanderveen.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I do appreciate.
Yeah.
Okay. I see you taking off your microphone.
So that is Michael Vanderveen. He was Trump's lawyer in the case. So what he gets from, I think, what is it, MSNBC? Oh, CBSNC. So what he gets from her, and it doesn't have her name here, but he gets you're saying, it's very weird, the media, they frame it, and he's right, it is subliminal messaging. It's not, she's not verifying what Vanderveen was arguing in court, which is actually factually correct. They were adding verified check marks to some of their sources. They were adding a verified check mark to their source of somebody talking trash about Trump. And then they also added to another source, they changed the date for a full year to give it more context, to make it look more like Trump incited violence. Now, in a real criminal case, this would all, not only would this get thrown out, but the court would be adjourned. They would throw the entire case out. It'd be over. If you were charging him for incitement of violence and they come up with doctored evidence like this, they would throw the entire thing out instantly. The judge would adjourn the court. It'd be over. The whole criminal case, they would be acquitted on all charges instantly, just for the malfeasance of doing that. And they knew, the Democrats knew what they were doing. And what his question, and he stated all of that, and then she goes ahead, well, you said this and you said that. Instead of corroborating what he said, his statement, which is it's true and it's factual, instead of just saying, yeah, okay, so this was, this is what happened, now what's your response? Instead, she said, oh, well, you said this, you said that, making it like what his claims are not true and they're just opinions. And that's really why he went after her. Now, the best part is probably he calls her out, and I don't even think this guy's political. At one point, it's about a 7-minute long interview, so I cut it down a little bit. He says, I'm not even Republican or Democrat. He's like, both parties. He was talking trash about both parties. And then at the very end, he drops, for you listeners, he throws the mic on the ground, and that's where you hear that doof. You hear the mic drop. And he goes, the best part of that entire interview is where he looks in. He goes, yeah. He goes, citizen at the very end. He goes, yep, citizen. Because he's showing, because usually they say, oh, well, that was a Republican governor, or that was Democrat senator. He's saying, this is the way we feel about you at this point. This is the way the American people think about you, the media. This is especially the way the conservatives think about you, the media. You guys are clowns. You guys are jokers. You've been pushing subliminal messages to us for years now, and everyone's starting to catch on to you because now we have the internet where we can play back videos and clips of you guys being hypocrites. Now, what I have next, Nancy Pelosi's reaction after Trump was acquitted. So now he is, now he's officially the champion, two-time acquittal champion or two-time impeachment champion of the world. No one's ever been impeached twice, and no one has ever been acquitted twice. No president ever, so he broke a record there. So this is Pelosi's reaction. She walks out, just for you listeners, she's going to walk out with all of her crony Democrats behind her. Play 5.
And that's everybody off the hook. Oh, these cowardly senators who couldn't face up to what the president did and what was at stake for our country are now going to have a chance to give a little slap on the wrist. We censure people for using stationery for the wrong purpose. We don't censure people for inciting insurrection.
So for you listeners, she's very visually angry. She slams the desk. She's doing all these hand gestures. I think she's actually doing the hand gestures because behind the mask and behind the dentures, you actually don't understand what she's saying. She's talking about giving him a slap on the wrist. She definitely was pissed. She might have had too many Chardonnays before she went up there. So to go off that, now Pelosi is calling for a 9/11 style commission on the Capitol insurrection. This is an independent, or the Capitol riot. I think that's actually the title of this one. The Independent UK. I'm pretty sure that's the title, and that's why. Yeah, that's the title. Okay, so it's written by Alex Woodward. It starts off, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has called for an independent commission similar to the months-long probe in the wake of the attacks on September 11th to investigate the Capitol insurrection on January 6th. It's weird the way they word things because this one's a UK article, so they write 6 January instead of January 6th. So this is what she has to say. Pelosi. She states, to protect our security, our next step will be to establish an outside independent 9/11 type commission to investigate and report on the facts and causes surrounding the riots that she has characterized in her statement as, and I quote, domestic terrorist attack upon the Capitol complex, and I quote, interference with the peaceful transfer of power, end quote. So, a group of Republican lawmakers have written to Speaker Pelosi about her responsibility for the security of the Capitol and hyperbolic focus on fabricated internal security concerns in a letter accusing her of leading a political charade after she supported installing magnetometers at the Capitol. So I'm guessing magnetometers are what, metal detectors, from what I would guess. So the actual story behind this is Trump gave them aid. He supplied he offered them aid many times before they ended up having this hearing on January 6th. They denied him multiple times. Now there's also more to this story. Another thing from this story, these bombs that were put in the DNC building and the RNC building were both put in there not the day of January 6th. So they were trying to link Trump to, and they continued to try to perpetuate lies during this impeachment hearing. It was a total debacle. They were linking Trump's incitement of insurrection or incitement to violence. They were linking what Trump said to these bombs being placed in these locations, and we still have yet to catch the people that did this. That's the first thing. The second thing is this did not happen on January 6th. This was before that. So you cannot make the argument for a incitement of violence. And I've heard liberals say this. They think they're so like intelligent. They think that you're so stupid that you listen to Trump say something and that automatically makes you incite the violence, and it had nothing to do actually with now the new argument is in January 6th, him going up there and saying that now it's, oh, well, leading up after the election, he was saying that the election was stolen. He was saying there was election fraud that was rampant, and it permeated throughout the country, and all of that actually was the incitement of violence more than the speech, because they can't prove now the speech, because he said to peacefully and patriotically go up there and let your voices be heard. So that automatically lets him off the hook. So now instead the new argument is, oh, well, he knew what he was doing when he was tweeting. His tweets were inciting a violence, this and that. It's all a load of garbage. So she wanted to, so Trump offered them additional security. They turned him down, and Pelosi decided not to have additional security against the wishes, and I've covered this before, against the wishes of the Capitol Police chief, who ended up stepping down after because she was calling for his resignation after all this was said and done. So they used that guy's a pawn. That guy now lost his job because he wanted additional security. She told him not to, and then after everything was said and done, Democrats, guess what they do? Throw you right under the bus. That guy lost his job, and he resigned. I'm sure he had enough years and everything, but that's definitely not the way to go out, because that's what you become famous for. So the Democrat, and next what I have, I was talking about commissions. So they want to create a commission like January 6th, the event where I believe they're linking 3 police officer deaths to it, because 2 police officers weeks later end up committing suicide, which you can't link those deaths directly because there's a bunch of other factors that play in and variables that play in somebody's life to make them commit suicide. I believe the real tally is something like 4 or 5 people passed away that day. 2 of them, it was something like a heart attack. One of them, I think they were having, it was older people that were just from the excitement literally had heart attacks and died. I mean, when you have a mass event with that many people, bad things are bound to happen to begin with, just regular health events too. You had the woman that got shot by the officer in the neck and passed away very quickly from the shot. It was a fatal wound. And then you have the officer that passed away, and now the New York Times, and I'm going to have this at the very end, the New York Times ends up retracting its statement saying that he died from blunt force trauma because they cannot find if you have blunt force trauma and that causes your death, it's very obvious from the coroner's office for them to find that in an autopsy. They have yet to find it, which is why the New York Times retracts their story. Apparently, he texted his brother afterwards saying that he got sprayed in the face or whatever, and that was it. He didn't say anything about getting hit with a fire extinguisher. So now we know the media's lie. The media will lie to inflame the people as much as they can to try to paint a narrative. So that's a lie now. We know that is a verified lie. The fact that the New York Times now retracts their story and it doesn't really make the news because the liberals don't want to hear it. They don't care. At the end of the day, for them, it doesn't matter. Facts don't matter to them. The story does not matter to them. So next, I have a Democrat congresswoman calling for a truth commission, and she is on Mr. Potato Head Brian Stelter's show on CNN. Play clip 1.
Interview with the 19th News website this week that the country needs a truth commission. What exactly would a truth commission be?
So I think part of what we're seeing now is because we haven't really done the reckoning with the racial injustice and white supremacy of our past that we need to do. And so, a truth commission, a lot of people will think of South Africa. We've used them in countries around the world. And basically what it is it's communities all the way up to the national level having conversations about both the gory and the glory of our history and what happened both throughout the history of our country and leading up to and on January 6th, so that we can come to a common narrative moving forward of what we want our country to be.
Do you notice that now more than ever the left wing is just outright and conspicuous with their feelings, with their proposals, with their provisions, what they want. This is Sarah Jacobs. She is a Democrat from California, of course, the great California. And she says, and probably the most damaging part of this interview is near the very end, where she's, Truth Commission, we talk about this, so we can come to a narrative, we can all come to an agreeing or a consensus narrative on what happened in our history instead of just actually I mean, I guess you can read the history, or is there supposed to, and when you come to this consensus narrative, what happens if you don't agree with the consensus narrative? Does the Truth Commission do something about that? Do they take away your job? Do you get fired? Do they dox you? Do you get all of your social media taken away from you? I just think it's really coming from, and by the way, the idea of a Truth Commission, I'm pretty sure that actually is legitimately verbatim how it's written in, it's like word for word written like that by George Orwell. I'm pretty sure it's in nature fundamentally Orwellian. To begin with, when you have the government dictating what is true and what isn't true all of the time, no matter what you say, to the point where now, and I've had liberals try to do this, where they try to fact check you, or they come out and they go, oh, this just isn't true. It's when people will post, legitimately, you will post an opinion about something or somebody, and they will come out and try to attempt to fact check you on an opinion. It's not about statistical analysis. It's not about the numbers. It will fact check you on an opinion about somebody. And this is already happening. This is happening on Facebook. This is happening on Twitter. This is happening on all of the social medias, on YouTube. YouTube have had a lot of videos taken down. It's just a matter of time until I get completely taken down, because they've been retroactively attacking my videos. And I'm not even a big YouTube guy. I mean, I only have so many. I have maybe 46 followers there, and then I have another 1,800 over on Rumble. That's really where I get most of my viewership. So yeah, so to go off on this now, Facebook, and they're coming out now, this is a Breitbart piece, Facebook will temporarily reduce the visibility of political content. This is a Breitbart article, is written by Lucas Nolan. So, and this is going to be, there's going to be a statement here from Facebook talking about it. Now, Facebook recently stated that it plans to temporarily reduce the visibility of political content for some users in the US, Canada, Brazil, and Indonesia, as the company faces increased scrutiny over its ability to moderate misinformation and hateful content. Forbes reports that Facebook revealed on Wednesday that it plans to temporarily reduce the visibility of political content for a small percentage of users in Canada, Brazil, Indonesia, and the United States. The company has faced increased scrutiny over its moderation abilities in recent months, and many claim that the site is failing to crack down on misinformation and hateful content. So to be clear now, on Facebook myself, I have been put down as a spammer account many times, now much more than ever. Now I can post, maybe if I'm lucky, once a day into groups. Now they've been doing this. This has been ongoing with them. Now what I've noticed is they're shutting down a lot of groups. So I think that's the big movement for them. They're going to start retroactively looking at things and shutting down groups. And now this is the statement from Facebook. In a blog post, Facebook states, and I quote, "Over the next few months, we'll work to better understand people's varied preferences for political content and test a number of approaches based on those insights. As a first step, we'll temporarily reduce the distribution of political content in news feeds for a small percentage of people in Canada, Brazil, and Indonesia this week, and the U.S. in the coming weeks." So this hasn't even gotten here yet. "During these initial tests, we'll explore a variety of ways to rank political content in people's feeds using different signals, and then decide on the approaches we'll use going forward. COVID-19 information from authoritative health organizations like the CDC and the WHO, as well as national and regional health agencies and services from affected countries, will be exempt from these tests. Content from official government agencies and services will also be exempt." So, to begin with, you want to talk about the CDC and the WHO, they have multiple times contradicted each other. The WHO was coming out saying that asymptomatic spread wasn't real. It was not. It was extraordinarily rare. They said it was very, very rare. And then the CDC came out and they went against the WHO's statement. And then additionally, the CDC told everyone that they're going to go back to schools, and now Fauci suddenly comes out, as well as Biden, after, I guess, talking to the teachers union. Now the CDC director comes out and says that they need to take more and more measures at schools, and they don't know when they can open them up. So this has been contradictory from the very beginning. It has been capricious. Everything has been so inconsistent this entire time, and kids still have not yet been able to go back to school in certain states, in specific states. And this is all teacher union. This has nothing to actually do with the safety of the kids. This has nothing to do with the kids getting a better education, because everyone knows online they're getting a horrible education right now. And this is, now, we're having this going on. This has not even come here to the United States. And then the most questionable part about this, and I think I have at the very end, and you know what, I'll read it now. Facebook has reportedly also heavily relied on an internal ranking system which it calls News Ecosystem Quality, or NEQ. This was used to elevate content from publications such as the New York Times, CNN, and NPR. Facebook staffers have reportedly requested that the nicer news feed remain permanent, but management has stated that the change is temporary. So, this is outrageous. I've covered this before, but just to go into it again. So in China, in communist China, the Chai Coms, what they have is they have this thing called a social ranking score that they've been instilling, where depending on who you associate with, what your thoughts are, if you go online, everything is a spy state there. So it's going to get to this. It's to this point where your social score is built up off of what you do politically. How much indoctrination you have into the government of China. Now, how is this, to me, how is this news ecosystem quality, how is this system any different? So they're going to go with, what they call authoritative, or New York Times, CNN, NPR, it's all left-wing sources, because that's what they think is better. It's like putting a social score on them that is obviously going to benefit them, and then putting a social score on all conservative media as not benefiting them, and pretty much suppressing the media source. And they're requesting that they're nicer news sources. But who is it that now decides who gets to speak and who doesn't? Who is it that is making these determinations on who's right and who's wrong? It's all left wing. Everything here is left wing. It is to the left. Who is telling you that you can't in the public square you can't speak anymore, and all the things that you put up are not going to be seen? And I'll be reporting this for the next couple of weeks. Every single thing that happens on my Facebook page, I don't really use much of anything else. Everything that happens on the Facebook page, I will know what's going on. I will see which sources. And this was something that Google did the same thing. Google was showing up for people that were actually conservative and had conservative searches. They would have more and more liberal media show up. And it's true, if you go on Google compared to Yahoo or Bing, you'll find that Google purposely goes out of its way to encourage only left-wing sources, like liberal sources. And I just don't understand, from the liberal understanding, that you guys want this giant echo chamber all the time to perpetuate. And then once they start to do this more and more, people that are on the right only get further to the right. They don't trust the left anymore. People that are maybe in the middle, maybe you win a couple people going to the left because of all of your tactics, your tyrannical authoritarianism. But everyone that's on the right is only going to get further pushed away on the right. And what I have next is I have a clip from Project Veritas, once again on the case. They have some more information, and this is just to show, if you want to call Facebook, you want Facebook to sit here and make the rules for everybody on what is true and what is not true. Check this out.
Applying people's DNA and RNA.
Last week, Facebook says it would remove any content that, quote, claims the COVID-19 vaccine changes people's DNA. We just got a new leaked tape from Zuckerberg himself, violating his own code of conduct.
I share some caution on this because we just don't know the long-term side effects of basically modifying people's DNA and RNA.
Basically, the vaccine is modifying people's DNA, but then Zuckerberg on November 30th in a public live stream Q&A appears to somewhat change his tune.
And my understanding is that these vaccines do not modify your DNA or RNA.
No. Isn't it interesting that as soon as he's made up his mind, or appears to have made up his mind on the topic, he disallows the almost 3 billion Facebook users to do the same. Rules for thee, but not for me.
So those are the guys that are going to be determining and extolling certain sources, the people that are consistently changing their opinions and their views, saying, oh, mRNA does change DNA, and then they have to go back and check, and now it doesn't, apparently, by their standard. It's just that's going to be our future there. And I'll keep you updated on that, how my account ends up going. But so next, what I have some of the lockdown stats, California and Florida, comparing the two of them. Just a very brief synopsis of it. But first off, I want to play Andrew Cuomo, a clip of Andrew Cuomo attempting to answer a couple of these questions coming from the media. Play 5.
Homes. We have 613 nursing homes in the state. 365 received a person from a hospital. Of the 365 that received a person from this March 25th guidance, which was then superseded in May, 98% of those 365 already had COVID in their facility. COVID did not get into the nursing homes by people coming from hospitals. COVID got into the nursing homes by staff walking into the nursing home when we didn't even know we had COVID. Staff walking into a nursing home even though they were asymptomatic, because the national experts all told us you could only spread COVID if you had symptoms. And they were wrong. COVID may have been brought into a nursing home because visitors brought it in and didn't know they were contagious, because the guidance was you can only be contagious if you have symptoms, if you're sneezing, if you're coughing. That turned out to be wrong. That's how COVID got into the nursing homes.
So his nursing home policy that Cuomo had, he's claiming that it wasn't from him sending people back into nursing homes knowing that they had COVID-19 and still in their system. They were still showing symptoms. He's claiming now that other people getting it that were in the facilities in the nursing homes, they're getting it from nurses that were there, or staff, or as well as visitors, instead of the people that he sent. So we're comparing. So wouldn't you think if somebody in a nursing home caught COVID-19, you'd have to say, okay, so what's the source? And the source to him, in his view, isn't the other people that have COVID-19 in the building. The source to him is people that were visitors and nurses that may be asymptomatic. That is just what he reported. And then he also reported, oh, okay, well, the people we were sending back to these facilities, already 98% of the facilities already had COVID-19. That's meaningless to me. That means nothing. That statement means nothing. And then they also had, and I wish I had the clip, Tucker Carlson on Tucker Carlson's show, they had Mayor or Governor DeSantis on. And Governor DeSantis, he explained, and here's the thing, and he explained this, he goes, oh, well, what we did was we actually had a separate holding facility for people with COVID-19, the older people with COVID-19. We kept them away from the other older people that didn't have COVID-19. And this is something that could have been done in New York. Trump sent like this ridiculous cruise ship, this just giant, well, not cruise ship, but this military ship, and then turned it with the Army Corps of Engineers, turned it into a makeshift hospital, and it was barely used by Governor Cuomo. It could have been used, but he decided not to use it, sent him the most ventilators, and they found that ventilators don't work. They did everything for this guy. They accommodated him as they truly did. They accommodated Mayor or Governor Cuomo more than they have accommodated any other governor in the entire country, and he still screwed this thing up. And it was all through his own executive orders telling them to send people back. And then what he does is he turns around and he's, oh, well, the CDC said this, and he blames it on other administrations, and he points blame, which at this point, honestly, he really should just resign. But the difference is Gavin Newsom, for example, in California, there's been votes putting him up. I think they needed 1.5 million to try to put him up for a re-election vote or something like that. They're trying to get rid of him. In New York, there's this weird loyalty to Democrats. There's this weird loyalty to these swamp rats, to these legacy politicians, I guess because of his father, Mario Cuomo. But it's just perplexing to me that this guy screwed up so monumentally. he screwed up, and there's just no question. The media doesn't even ask him. I haven't seen him on CNN yet. They haven't been asking him questions. Chris Cuomo's brother won't cover it. It's outrageous. So here's some stats what I have. Lockdown stats between California and Florida shows that lockdowns do not work. They have no effect. This is a Daily Mail article. So in this piece, there's also a lot of charts and stuff. I highly suggest you to check it out if you're interested in seeing the difference. I'm trying right now myself to find the... Okay, so it's written by Mary Kikados, who's the senior health reporter at the Daily Mail. So it's just a brief synopsis here. Do lockdowns really make a difference? How two U.S. states with totally opposite COVID strategies both ended up with the same result. So it starts off, California Governor Gavin Newsom took a very strict approach during the coronavirus pandemic and closed bars and indoor dining, issued mask mandates and limited gatherings in your own private homes. By comparison, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has issued very few closures and said he has trusted Floridians to use common sense to control the spread of the virus. Historically, when adjusting for population, Florida has had 8,306 cases and 117 deaths per 100,000 residents. And California has had about 8,499 cases per 100,000 residents and 130 deaths per 100,000. Currently, each state is recording between 200 and 400 cases per million and between 10 and 20 deaths per million, showing a very similar curve over the last 2 months. Hospitalization rates are also very similar, with California reporting 24 hospitalizations per 100,000, while Florida has recorded about 22 per 100,000. So what we've seen here, to briefly state, what we've seen is about the same numbers. We've actually seen Florida has a little bit better numbers than California. And in this comparison, I think is the most tantamount one you can find, because Florida and California, if you think about the climate of both of them, it's very similar. It's hot in Florida. Same thing, California, generally the climate's around 70 degrees almost every single day. It's a nice place to live. So just to compare the two, they're very similar in that dynamic, but what's been different about the methods and their approaches, and it seems like both of them, in general, I mean, Florida's a little bit better, but in general, they're both pretty much the same. So it's indicative that lockdowns don't work. And these lockdown strategies, the only thing that they have done is decimate small businesses, taking people's jobs away from them, their freedom, their lives, really. And in Florida, that's just not the case. So that's just very brief for you. If you want to read that, that's a Daily Mail article. Once again, everything that I talk about, everything I reference will be in the show notes. So this one is probably the most important thing I have today. I didn't even hint at it really that much, but I'm going to go pretty deep on this one. This is about James Comey. James Comey told the FBI he was unable to sufficiently corroborate the Steele dossier, but then still went on the exact same day to sign the FISA warrant. So he's going and he's signing and approving FISA warrants to spy on people, knowing the evidence, the probable cause that you need to get the warrant isn't sufficiently corroborated by the Steele dossier. So this is just a news piece. John Solomon reports, and I'm just going to give him a second to briefly lay it out in this clip, and then I'll go over it myself. Play 8.
For months now, we've wondered exactly when did the FBI know that the Carter Page allegations in the Christopher Steele dossier, the allegations that Carter Page was colluding with Russia to hijack the Trump campaign and its election in 2016, when did they know they were false? Well, now we know. Newly declassified documents obtained by Just the News shows that the FBI had intercepted a conversation. Actually, it was one of their human sources, Stefan Halper, wearing a wire, in which Carter Page was asked about the 4 different allegations in the Steele dossier. He didn't know he was talking to an FBI informant. And in all 4, he knocked down the allegations. He said he didn't know the 2 Russians he was accused of meeting with. He said he had no role in the platform for the Republican convention. He knocked down 2 other very important allegations that Steele made, which means before the FBI went to the FISA court, they already knew the Carter Page allegations were bunk. The only problem is they never told the judges.
So Stephen Halper was hired by Perkins Coie, who is the law firm that is funded by Hillary Clinton. And Stephen Halper became an FBI informant, and he had a wire. He was talking to Carter Page about some of the allegations in which they were trying to investigate him for to obtain the warrant, and all of these things that they were trying to investigate him for was obtained through the Steele dossier. And he debunked the entire thing. It wasn't true from when he talked to this informant. And obviously Carter Page was speaking to him in good faith because he didn't think that Stephen Halper was an FBI informant. So all this information's obtained, right? Goes forward, they go to James Comey, they tell him about it. James Comey, then he starts to talk about emails going back and forth with, at the time, Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible because I think it's very, very important. Just to show all of your friends how there is a police state and there's a spy state going after a candidate at this point in Donald Trump. He wasn't even the president at this time, a candidate, just to make sure the swamp can continue to perpetuate itself and to ensure that no outsider comes in. And that was the whole point of this impeachment hearing to begin with, and the two impeachments. It is retribution. It is to teach you, the American, that you are not welcome here. This is our space. Stay out. We're going to keep doing our dirty swamp deals, and we don't want anyone seeing what we're doing. So it starts off the very day in January 2017 that then FBI Director James Comey signed a FISA surveillance warrant application declaring content from Christopher Steele's dossier had been verified. He wrote President Obama's outgoing intelligence community chief with a very different assessment of the British spies' intelligence on Russia collusion, a newly released memo shows. So this is all government documents that I'm going to show you on the screen. It's just one, but this is what he states, quote, Comey, and I quote, "We are not able to sufficiently corroborate the report." And this is on January 12th, 2017, the email to then Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, that was declassified and made public through an open records lawsuit by the Southeastern Legal Foundation. So this is a FOIA request, from what I understand, a Freedom of Information Act request. So goes on. CIA officials had already informed Comey's FBI that the target of the FISA warrant, Carter Page, wasn't a Russian spy, but rather an asset helping the U.S. intelligence agency. The Bureau had received warnings about Steele and the reliability of his source network, including that it might have been compromised by Russian disinformation. Agents had also just recommended on January 4th, 2017, shutting down the probe's inquiry into incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn for lack of evidence. So he's being told January 4th, and then once he sent this email, January 12th. So they're being told, okay, just so you know, there's some Russian disinformation out there. Carter Page is not a Russian asset. He's not a foreign agent. Additionally, we have nothing on Mike Flynn. We just do not have, we have a lack of evidence on him to even obtain a warrant. But so the FBI had been warned the previous summer that Hillary Clinton's campaign may have planted the false Russia collusion story as a way to vilify Trump and distract from her email scandal. And agents were about to interview Steele's primary subsource, who would discount much of the information in the dossier attributed to him as bar talk and unconfirmed rumor not worthy of official intelligence. So, considering all of this information, there is not a probable cause at this point to obtain a warrant. Now, to obtain a warrant through the legal justice system, you need to go to a magistrate, such as a judge, and that's where that's what Solomon alludes to at the very end of that video. Is they went to the judge for the warrant. Judge didn't know, obviously, that their information hasn't been corroborated. He just signs off on the warrant. So, and the larger intelligence community had decided it did not want to vouch for the Steele dossier in its official intelligence community assessment about Russian meddling in the 2016 election. So we have all of these things kind of racking up here. We have the CIA informing them that there really is no precedent for this, and then we also have the FBI warning them that they don't have, certain FBI agents saying Michael Flynn, they have a lack of evidence. Then they have a confirmation that Carter Page wasn't a Russian spy, and a lot of this information might be Russian disinformation and the FBI warning them, or the FBI being warned by the CEA that Hillary Clinton's campaign may have planted the false Russia collusion story as a way to vilify Trump. And then they go forward. It was in that environment, in the final days of the Obama administration, that Clapper had written Comey earlier on January 12th, 2017, to inform the FBI that Clapper had decided to release a public statement declaring that the Steele dossier was only mentioned in an appendix to the Intel community's report because, and I quote, the IC has not, and that's the intelligence community, the intelligence community has not made any judgment that the information in the document is reliable, end quote. So we have the Intel community coming out saying that it's not reliable information. So Comey tried to push back, suggesting Steele was deemed reliable. He actually had been terminated by the FBI for leaking by that time, at that point, and that his network included sources that might be a position to know things, although the key source had already disavowed the information attributed to him in the dossier. So the key source where Steele got his information from, apparently, this guy already said none of this stuff is true. So I don't really know. This was just fabricated out of thin air from what it sounds like. Dan Bongino goes into it. He says it's something legitimately from a movie script when he went on to explain it. So first off, what I have here, this is the heading here. This is the classified or the unclassified email. That's James Comey on the very top, from James Comey to James Clapper, the DNI, CC'd a bunch of people. The date, Thursday, January 12th, 2017, 10:08 a.m. So at this point, they definitely have not gotten the warrant because it's in the early in the morning. So this is Jim. This is James Clapper, or James Comey emailing Jim. He states, and this is a direct email that has become unclassified. He states, and I quote, "I just had a chance to review the proposed talking points on this for today. Perhaps it is a nit, but I worry that it may not be best to say," and I quote, "the IC, the intelligence community, has not made any judgment that the information in the document is reliable. I say that because we have concluded that the source, redacted, is reliable and has a track record with us of reporting reliable information. We have some visibility into his source network, some of which we have determined to be subsources in a position to report on such things, and much of what he reports in the current document is consistent with and corroborative of other reporting, including in the document of the main IC report. That said, we are not able to sufficiently corroborate the reporting to include it in the body of the report." Let me repeat that. We are not able to sufficiently corroborate the reporting to include it in the body of the report. That all rings in my ears as more complicated than, and I quote, "we have not made a judgment that the information in the document is reliable. It might be better to say," and I quote, we have not been able to sufficiently corroborate the information to include it in the body of the Russia report, but for a variety of reasons, we thought it important to include it in our report to our senior-most audience," end quote. So you have James Comey telling James Clapper, he's telling him, hey, I don't like your wording on this because it's going to be harder for us to receive, or it's going to be harder really to cover up in the end and harder for us to receive a warrant. This redacted source, which I'm assuming is Steele, Christopher Steele. The redacted source, Christopher Steele, has been known to be reliable on other things. He has a decent track record. But we're saying we can't sufficiently corroborate what he's reporting in this case. Now, he's had a decent track record, but I am myself am saying that we can't sufficiently corroborate it. But it would be much smarter in our intelligence report to cover ourselves and just say we don't have enough of the sufficiently corroborative information to include it in the body of this Russian report, and for a variety of reasons, meaning for a variety of security reasons, we're gonna leave it out and give it to our most senior audience because of some sort of national security risk. So he hid behind that guise, James Comey here. So it goes on. The piece goes on. A report by Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz that sharply criticized Comey's FBI for misconduct in the Russia probe, including falsifying a document and submitting erroneous information to the courts, revealed that the very same day as the Clapper exchange, Comey signed the first application to renew a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant, so that's a FISA warrant, thus extending the spying on Page for another 3 months. The IG, or the Inspector General, concluded, so that's Michael Horowitz, he concluded the January 12, 2017 application contained erroneous information. The FBI filed 3 renewal applications with the FISC, which is the FISA court, on January 12th, April 7th, and June 29th, 2017. In addition to repeating the 7 significant errors contained in the first FISA application and outlined above, we identified 10 additional significant errors in the 3 renewal applications, Horowitz's Inspector General report said. So they knew that they did not actually have corroborated information. There was erroneous information in there, just not true, false, incorrect information. And they continued to obtain warrants and to spy on people, which is specifically, that is against the Fourth Amendment. That is against due process, unreasonable search and seizure. Okay? So next, the January 12th, 2017 application signed by Comey was marked verified, representing the FISA court that allegations from Steele's dossier that Page had met 2 sanctioned Russians in summer 2016 and had tried to change the GOP platform to help Moscow had been substantiated. In fact, they had not been verified. To the contrary, the FBI had intercepted Page talking to an informant denying he had met with the Russians or been involved in the platform change, 2 facts the FBI hid from the court. So the FBI, James Comey, they all knew that all this information wasn't verified, and just to go after the Trump campaign, they falsely verified the information just to obtain a FISA warrant, because at this point, and this is the reason you don't have unreasonable search and seizures, and why there has to be some sort of a probable cause, because they're not looking for a crime. They didn't find a crime. The way in America, the way it's supposed to work, the prosecutorial process in the justice system, it's supposed to be you find the crime and then you go and you find the individual to match the crime. In this system, they're finding the person and then they're searching for a crime on the person. That's what's going on right now. There's a lack of due process, is directly in violation of the Constitution, and Comey should be in prison for this for a very long time, but that's not going to happen. It seems like 0 will happen on this. And this is another civil liberties violation. And that's the problem. The whole FISA court, all this, I believe, was actually made up from the Patriot Act, and I think that's our biggest problem going forward. I'm pretty sure that's what it originally came from. So next what I have is, and this is the very last article I have, and then I'll have my quick headlines. So it is Biden won't rule out executive orders to crack down on the Second Amendment. It's a Paul Shiver article, and I've been hitting this constantly, but I think it's very important that we show it as much as humanly possible, because it's so significant and it's paramount on our continuation of a free society to be able to hold on to our Second Amendment rights. So it starts this article here. It says, President Biden has not ruled out using executive action to push through his gun control agenda, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki confirmed Tuesday. The news followed a meeting between gun control group leaders and top White House officials last week, which left the leaders feeling confident that the Biden administration would enact gun reform via executive order if necessary. Now, this is when asked by a reporter this Tuesday, in a press briefing about whether or not the administration was still considering bypassing Congress to force action on gun control. This is what Jen Psaki had to say, play 6.
Okay, go ahead.
Just following up on his question, does the president still plan to take executive action on gun violence? The president has a range of actions at his disposal. I think you were asking, Steve, about a legislative package, which I know, but he hasn't ruled out either of those options, of course, but I don't have anything to announce for you in terms of what the next steps would look like.
So we're not going to rule out the idea of a executive order for gun control at this point. I just don't know what any executive order that he's going to attempt to sign and push through. I just can't see it being constitutional. I can't see the Supreme Court allowing it. I really hope not. I could see 4 of the justices voting yes against it, but I don't see 5 people voting against it. So I just don't know. I guess we'll see. This is the one thing. This is a very important component to freedom. The Second Amendment and the First are probably the first 2, the most important amendments to our Constitution in terms of preserving freedom. Now, the Second Amendment, First Amendment right now is completely under attack by big corporations, big tech companies, shutting down conservative content, conservative speech, and creating a leftist echo chamber. Now, the Second Amendment, I think the conservatives actually have a very good track record on this. There's certain things that have been given, certain red flag laws, certain background checks, certain hoops that you got to jump through, in particular in states like New Jersey or California, New York. But for the most part, in a lot of these other more red states, the Second Amendment's been protected pretty well, so I think conservatives are going to push back big time on this one. I just can't see any success in this realm for the Democrat Party, but I guess we'll see what they end up doing, how tyrannical that they go with this. But the Second Amendment is something that historically by the I guess conservative class or the Republican Party has been defended pretty vehemently. So we'll see. So to start off with the headlines here, what I have is White House concerns over the WHO report on China and coronavirus. So this is a Daily Wire piece. This is just, it just briefly talks about how the WHO really won't go against China at all in any aspect, talking about where exactly the coronavirus came from. They won't even talk about China's numbers when they were actually reporting numbers of coronavirus. And they're saying that China there was no malfeasant behavior by China, the WHO. That's the report that came from them. That's pretty much what the Daily Wire has here. Now, the Biden administration to allow 25,000 asylum seekers to cross the U.S.-Mexico border while cases are pending. This is something that they were practicing a little bit during the Trump administration. I don't know exactly if he shut it down or if he changed the way the system was. I think what he did was he held them in captivity until their case came. I think that's what he did. Or he held them for something like 30 days, and then if their case wasn't taken in those 30 days, then I think they released them. I'm not exactly sure about the specifics of what he did, but the way this plan is going to go is as soon as you come and you say that you want asylum, you get a court date and you get sent into our country, and then you never show up for the court date. On average, from what I remember reading, and this was during the Trump administration, during the very beginning, the inception, when they were talking about Obama stats too as well, 90% of people that ended up getting this court date never showed up because they already made it into the country at that point, and they don't care, and they will run from the law enforcement system as much as they can, because obviously they don't want to pay taxes, and they can work illegally, and then they don't have to pay into the tax system. And then if they go and they realize that their case they aren't really truly asylum cases, then they get sent back to Mexico or to Guatemala or wherever they came from. So now what the Biden administration is going to do is they're going to allow people, just full on 25,000 of them, just come in here, none of them being coronavirus tested. And this is something I've seen. I'm not that I'm the coronavirus, liaison blowing the whistle. I'm not the hall monitor of coronavirus, but to be fair, all of these stringent measures that regular Americans have to take for coronavirus, and then we just let 25,000 asylum seekers in. It's almost like the standard for being American is much higher than the standard for being an illegal alien in this country. It really is. It is unbelievable. It really is. So January border apprehensions jumped, and on this news, 157% over the last year as Biden took office. So compared to last year in January, Biden or the border apprehensions have jumped 157%. And so this is from Breitbart News. This is a Bongino piece. Just briefly, I want to read this paragraph off because I think it's very important. So it starts off, the number of migrants apprehended by Border Patrol agents in January after illegally crossing the border from Mexico jumped by 157% over January 2020. Border Patrol agents arrested 75,198 migrants who illegally crossed the Mexican border into the U.S. between ports of entry in January, according to the January Southwest Border Migration Report released by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Wednesday night. This is up from 29,205 the year before. The apprehensions mark the highest January total since 2006, when agents took more than 101,000 migrants into custody. Information reported Wednesday night paints a different picture. Single adult apprehensions jumped by triple-digit percentages in all 9 Southwest border sectors, comparing January 20th to January 21st, 182% overall. So, this is a different picture than being painted by the media and the narrative as, oh, well, it's a bunch of children. No, we have triple-digit percentage increases of just adult apprehensions, adults trying to hop the border illegally. So this whole, and you know what, I remember when at the very inception of Trump running and the build a wall and all this, and I was an ignorant lib. I was an ignorant liberal, so I actually didn't know all these numbers. The fact that there's 75,198 migrants in 1 month trying to hop the border into America is a serious problem. And that's the ones that they catch. That's not even the people that they don't catch that are hopping the border illegally. If we're seeing numbers like this every single year, do the math on that. It's almost 1 million people are illegally, and those are people that they're apprehending. This isn't even accounting for all the people that get by them. It really, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. And now the idea, the build a wall idea, is not really a terrible idea. And this is because we also pay for illegal aliens to be here. We pay about $130 billion every single year in social services that they never pay back through any taxation because they are not taxpayers. The only thing they pay is maybe sales tax. That's it. Other than that, they're not paying any other tax. Because of that, right, $130 billion. To build the wall, it actually cost $30 billion. So we would already save in the first year if we can somehow just stop the bleeding of these people coming in here illegally. They need to set it up. They need to have a system in place where they legally do it, which we do have a system. They just choose to circumvent the system because they don't want to wait online like everybody else that has to wait online to come into the country. So like I said, I mean, it went from last year, 29,000 to this year, 75,000. So obviously the illegal aliens as well as the coyotes, they know what's going on. The gang members that are getting them here and smuggling them, they know that it's going to be easier to get into America. And that's really the moral of the story here, because they know the Democrat Party is very loose on borders because they don't care about the middle-class worker. They don't care about preserving a good wage for them and driving up the wage for them. They'd rather keep the borders open, help out their buddies that work at the rich Koch brother type people, help out the rich guys to drive the labor costs down really low so they can afford cheap labor and screw the rest of us. In the very end here, and this is what I mentioned this one before, New York Times retracting the Sicknick story, which is the officer that passed away shortly after the January 6th Capitol riots. And that's just them. They retract the story. There's no indication of blunt force trauma. And then a text message to his brother saying, I got sprayed by, pepper spray, and that's it. And then apparently what happened later that day is he died from a blood clot, from what I read. Still yet, this is a story that's been suppressed by the media, and they won't come out with it because it shows their hypocrisy. It shows that they will take advantage of a situation to fit their narrative, and they will drive the discourse that way. And then lastly, 11 arrested in Manhattan at a BLM protest. So now we have a new administration. Joe Biden's supposed to fix everything, fix all of the hurt that Donald Trump has put this country through everything that we had to endure, and they continue to do BLM riots and protests in New York City. So there you go. It goes to show these Antifa groups, these Black Lives Matter groups, these are not groups actually looking for social justice. They are social Marxists, and they're looking for power any way possible. It doesn't matter how well you make their lives. They want to fundamentally change the country and the character and the principles of the country and the DNA. But that will conclude this one. I greatly appreciate everyone for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, let your friends know about the podcast. And that is really it. Everyone have a good one. I will see you on Friday. Thank you.